Okay, guys, so Unit 2 is about the French and Indian War and the American Revolution. So, the French and Indian War, also known as the 7 Years' War, started in 1754. Really, truly started 1754, but they don't really claim it until more like 1756. And it ends in 1763 with the Treaty of Paris. And so, this is what the United States looked like prior to the Treaty of Paris of the French and Indian War, and this is what it looked like after. So Great Britain and France were fighting over this little area right here, and so the French enlisted the Native Americans in the area to help them fight against Great Britain, which is why, and it's told from the Great Britain point of view. So that's why Great Britain were fighting the French and the Indians, which is why we call it the French and Indian War. So most of the early battles were won by the French. This is some of the first battles that George Washington fights in as a young general or a young officer, as he's kind of making his way. But the United States, not the United States, but Great Britain ends up winning this war, and the Treaty of Paris ends the war. So if you click on this link, I'm going to post a PDF of this. If you click on this link, this gives you a short video explaining the French and Indian War and the Treaty of Paris. See, the effects of the war is Great Britain got a lot of territory, as you saw on the previous map. France was very big over here. Now there's no France. It's all red, all Great Britain. Not a lot of red, a lot of red. Spain got a lot more territory. France was humiliated, was very angry, but Great Britain was in a whole lot of debt from it. So what did they do? They needed to tax the American colonists to pay for this expensive war. So they passed a whole lot of different taxes or acts on the American colonists to fund or to repay for this war. Things like the Stamp Act, where you had to pay a tax for a stamp to go on all of your paper goods, where it was a book, a newspaper, a will, any kind of document. You had to pay an extra amount of money for this document. Quartering Act was not technically a tax, but it did cost the colonists more money because they had to pay for British soldiers to be housed in their homes, which is now why the Third Amendment to the Constitution is you will never have to quarter troops in your home because of the Quartering Act during this time period. The Townshend Act taxed glass, lead, paper, paint, tea. So basically, the British Crown was taxing anything and everything they could possibly tax on the American colonists, and they got very angry and they rebelled. So tensions were high because of all these taxes and the Quartering Act, and so the Boston Massacre takes place, and so again, causes of the Boston Massacre, taxation, quartering of troops, and so this takes place in March of 1770. 5 people are killed, including Crispus Attucks, and this is Crispus Attucks. And you think massacre, you think lots of people, but this picture was circulated, and it was circulated so that people would be outraged by people being shot dead by British officers in the street. John Adams, who will become our second president, he is a founding father. He was an attorney at the time, or a lawyer at the time, and he was the person who defended the British soldiers, and they were found not guilty of murder, but they were found guilty of manslaughter. So after this, we have the Boston Tea Party. Now, because we had the Tea Act, they had the cost of tea had gone up, and they were like, American colonists is pretty much all they drank, and they were not really happy about this. And so they said, we're going to kind of basically try to make the colonists happy, and so they're going to sell tea a little bit cheaper to the American colonists, but they're going to sell a poor quality tea, and they're like, not having it. You're not going to sell us cheaper tea, and it's crappier tea. So the American colonists, this was a whole bunch of founding fathers. They dressed up like Native Americans, so you can kind of see it in this picture. They dressed up like Native Americans and went on to a ship in the Boston Harbor and threw about $1 million worth of tea into the Boston Harbor. And so this becomes the Boston Tea Party. This leads to the Coercive Acts, which the colonists called the Intolerable Acts. And the most severe of them was they closed the Boston Harbor to punish the American colonists and the founding fathers. So now we have the Declaration of Independence. Now, we didn't immediately go, let's go fight an American Revolution and let's break away from Great Britain. That's not what our founding fathers immediately did. They continuously tried to negotiate. They sent letters and petitions and begged and begged. But people like Thomas Paine said it was common sense for us to break away. And then they eventually wrote the Declaration of Independence. So the first shots were actually fired in 1775. The shot heard around the world that actually starts the American Revolution is in April of 1775. We don't sign the Declaration of Independence until July of 1776. So a full 15 months after the first shots of the American Revolution. So even after the war has already started, we still haven't officially said, okay, we want to break away. So the Declaration of Independence was authored by Thomas Jefferson. These are some of the key revolution. And so this eventually, this starts the American Revolution. So these are key people. So this is George Washington. He led the Continental Army, will become our first president. Paul Revere, he's famous for his midnight ride of the British are coming. And the British were coming to disarm the American citizens, which is why we have the Second Amendment, because not anything other. So if the American citizens couldn't, or the American colonists at this time, could not fight back against the British, they would quickly subdued the rebellion and there would not have been an American Revolution. Thomas Jefferson, who will become our third president. Benjamin Franklin, he was, he did a lot of things, inventor, ambassador. John Adams, again, founding father, attorney, second president. Patrick Henry, he gave a famous "Give me liberty or give me death," like I'd rather be dead than not free. And this is Benedict Arnold. He was he fought alongside of George Washington. He was George Washington's like bestie, and betrayed him for a woman. So he actually gave snitched all of George Washington's plans to the British and defected to the British military, and they never actually trusted him, all for a woman. So the advantages that the British had, they had the most powerful army and the navy in the world, better weapons, more experience, more money. Their disadvantages is they were thousands away from home. They didn't know the terrain. The advantages for the Americans, the biggest thing is they had something worth they were fighting for. They had a cause they were fighting for. Again, they had help from the French, thanks to Benjamin Franklin, and they knew the terrain. So disadvantage, they had no money, they had no navy, and their military was poorly trained. So these are some of the conflicts. So again, here's Paul Revere's Ride, Lexington Concord. Turning point is Battle of Saratoga. This is when the French decided they're going to come help the Americans. Valley Forge, this is one of the most famous. It was very, very cold, and they are actually able to take out the Hessians who were helping the British. Battle of Yorktown is when Cornwallis surrendered to the Americans. Treaty of Paris, 1783. So we've got two Treaty of Paris. We actually have three, but this is the second one in 20 years. This ends the American Revolution, officially sets the new boundaries. So all of this is now America. And so this is Northwest Territory right here, and this is all Spanish territory. So this officially ends the American Revolution, and now we have a new country that we need to figure out what to do with, and that will be in Unit 3.